Hi friends, this is Dr. Talluri Upender, Associate Professor in the Department of CSE, CMR College of Engineering and Technology, Hyderabad. So in previous lecture in part A, I explained that how to pass the parameters or one-dimensional arrays to a function. Okay, how to pass one-dimensional array to a function. Now in this lecture, I am going to explain in part B. Okay, I am going to explain how to pass a two-dimensional array to a function. How to pass a two-dimensional array to a function. Now, we have to learn this concept step by step. Step 1, first we need to declare that statement. Declaration is nothing but prototype. That is also called as prototype statement. Means here, through the declaration, what happens here means we are giving the instruction to the compiler. I am using so and so name function. I am passing so and so parameters to that function. So the function is also returning or not. If it returns, you can specify the return type. Okay, so what type of data it is going to return, that information we are passing to the compiler. For that we use the declaration statement here. Okay, so here this declaration statement always you have to write on top of the program. Okay, so if you write the definition of this function before to the main, no need to write the declaration. If you define the function definition after the main function, then you must write the declaration or prototype statement before the main function. Okay, you have to remember that. Now syntax, how to write the declaration or prototype statement. First you have to specify the return type. If it returns anything, what type of data it is going to return, you can specify the return type here. After that you have to specify the what name you are using to that function. You have to specify the name of the function. Next, whatever the parameters you are going to pass, you can specify the parameters list here. First I want to pass the parameter is a two-dimensional array. So here how can we identify whether it is two-dimensional or one-dimensional, three-dimensional here means, here we are specifying the square brackets here. If there are two square brackets are there means that is two-dimensional array. If it is only one square bracket means here that is one-dimensional array. Next two argument is integer and the third one is also integer. The second and third integer values represents the number of rows and the number of columns in that matrix. How many rows and how many columns are there in the passing matrix here, that you have to specify. Otherwise, if you are not specifying these values here, how the receiving function can finds or reads the elements from the given matrix here. Okay, so that's why we need to pass the number of rows and number of columns. That must be always integer. That's why I specified the integer here. Okay, if you want, you can check that example also. Here return type is void, means here this function is not returning anything. So that's why I'm using the return type name is void. If it returns integer means you have to use int. If it is float means you have to write float like that. Okay, after that followed by name of the function. Okay, name of the function print mat. I am using the name of the function here is print mat. Next, I am passing the three parameters here. One is a matrix here, that is two-dimensional array. Second one is integer. Okay, third one is also integer. They represents, okay, number of rows and number of columns. Here no need to specify the matrix name or row name and column name here. Those are the optionals. If you want, you can specify, otherwise no need. This is the declaration statement. This is the first step. Okay, so then we go to the second step here. What is the second step here? In the second step, how to call a function. Where we have to call a function. Where we have to call a function? We have to call a function in the calling function. That calling function may be either main function or any other function also. But how to call a function in the calling function? What is the statement? What is the syntax of that one here means here? So here variable is equal to. That means if the function returns anything here, you can specify the return type. If it is not returning anything, this is optional. If it is not returning anything, this particular, okay, variable is equal to, this is optional. Directly you have to write that function name, you have to specify the name of the function and followed by whatever the matrix name you are using in your program, which matrix you want to pass, you can specify that matrix name only. Don't specify the row and column subscript values. Okay, when while calling a function, whenever you are passing the parameters to or two-dimensional array to a function, in that case don't specify the row and column index positions here, subscript values. Next, how many number of rows you are passing, you have to specify that value. How many number of columns you are passing, you have to specify that value. Okay, those are integer values, no need to specify the data type name here. Directly you have to specify the two-dimensional array name here, and here number of rows, which variable you are going to take to represent the rows here, you have to specify that variable name, or directly you have to specify the literal value also. Here also same, which variable is going to represent the columns here, that column variable name you have to specify. Otherwise you have to specify the direct literal value also. Okay, if you want you can take that example. Okay, so here it is not returning anything, so that's why I'm not using variable is equal to, that concept is not using here in this case here. Now after that followed by name of the function is print mat. Now here I am passing which matrix I want to print, means here that name matrix name is mat a. In that case no, don't specify the subscript values, square brackets here. Next, number of rows are represented by r and number of columns are represented by c. If you want you can write like this also, that is print mat of matrix name, that is mat a comma, that matrix contains the number of rows are 3, number of columns also 3. Then you can specify the literal values directly as the arguments in the calling function. Okay, so this is another example. In this way also we can specify the parameters while calling the function here. Okay, now this is the second step. So where we have to write the this function call statement here, means we can write this statement in calling function only. Which function is going to call that print mat function, in that function you have to write. Okay, this is the second step. Third step, what is the third step here, means you have to write the function definition. Function definition. Step 3, function definition. You have to write the definition of the okay function here, where we have to write outside of the main. Okay, so what is the general syntax of the function definition here, means here function definition contains two parts are there. One is function header and the second one is body of the function. These together we can call as function definition. Okay, function header and body of the function together we can call as function definition. Okay, now here in this function header, so this must be matched with the declaration or prototype statement, remember that. Okay, this function header must be matched with the function prototype or declaration statement. Now you have to specify the return type, after that name of the function here, then whatever the parameters we are going to pass, you can specify the parameters here. These parameters are called what? Formal parameters. Okay, so whatever the parameters you are specifying in this function call statement, these parameters are called actual parameters. Actual parameters. These here these parameters are called formal. These parameters are called formal parameters. Now first formal parameter is what? First we are passing that which one we are passing, which parameter we are passing to this one? Matrix. Matrix means two-dimensional array, so integer type it is. So what is the name of the matrix and what are the dimensions here? Okay, first subscript represents number of rows, second one represents number of columns. In this case here, in the actual formal parameters, you must specify the size of the column. Size of the row, that must be optional. If you want, you can specify. Otherwise, no need to specify the row value, row size here. Okay, so here you have to specify the column size only. You must specify column size here. Okay, so next int rows and int columns. So here whatever the values you are passing in the function call statement, those number of rows values will be assigned to rows and the number of column values will be assigned to the columns here. Okay, next body of the function. So whatever the operation, whatever the task you are going to perform, you have to write that related statements inside the body of the function. This is the end. Is it clear? This is the function definition syntax here. Now if you can check that example also. Check that example. So here it is not returning anything. That's why I'm using the return type is void. And the name of the function is printmat. I'm using the name of the function is printmat. I'm passing the first parameter in the function call statement. I specified the first parameter is a matrix. So the in the formal parameters also first parameter must be a matrix only. Matrix. Okay. I'm taking the name of the matrix is mat of I'm no, I don't want to take the row size here. I want, but you need to you must specify the column size. Okay, int rows 3. The value 3 will be stored in rows, and the next value 3 will be stored in columns here. Okay. Now here we know that this is a I want to print the matrix here in the matrix format. So these are the statements. Okay, they helps us to print the matrix in a matrix format here. So I am taking the supporting variables, whatever the other variables we require to perform this task, we have to declare them. Okay, so for I is equal to 0, I 0 less than or equal to rows means rows value is 3. Okay, columns value is also 3. Okay, so 0 less than 3 condition is true, it enters into the loop here. Okay, now again inner loop is going to start, j value is 0, 0 less than columns also 3, condition is true, again it enters into the inner loop body. Then printf mat of I comma j, where I value is 0, j value is also 0. That means it prints that the first row first column element on the screen. Is it clear? Okay, so this like that it prints that elements of the matrix on the screen. This is the okay example for a third step. Okay, so I'll explain that entire program, one simple example program to read and display a matrix. Okay, with the help of or by passing the two-dimensional array to a function. See here example program you have to check it. Okay, read and print a 3 by 3 matrix, a 3 by 3 matrix. Now here this is the function prototype statement or function declaration statement. First step I said no. So here if you this is the main part here, main function I wrote. Later I wrote that print mat function here. Okay, so if you want to write this print mat function before the main function here, then no need to write the prototype statement. Okay, or if you want to write the print mat definition after the main here, after the main, then you must write the declaration statement. So in this example I wrote the definition of print mat function after the main. That's why I'm using the okay print matter declaration statement. Now it is not returning anything here, that's why I'm using the word is void, and the name of the function is print mat here. And passing parameters are, this is one two-dimensional array I'm passing, second one is integer, third one is also integer. Okay, next now execution going to starts from main function. Now in this body of the main, so I'm declaring I j and mat a of 3 comma 3 because I want to display that 3 by 3 matrix here. So directly I have taken that number of rows and columns are 3 and 3. Now directly I have to enter any 9 elements. 9, how to get that 9 here means here total a matrix contains how many number of elements means here you have to multiply that number of rows and columns here. You have to multiply number of rows and columns. It will give that number of elements in the matrix. Okay, number of elements in the matrix. So here 3 3 is 9 here. That's why I wrote directly 9 here. Enter any 9 elements into mat A. So that can be done by using the okay nested loops concept here. So here up to here. So by execution of these statements, you have to read any 9 elements through the keyboard. Okay, those elements will be stored in the specified matrix, that is mat A. Okay, so once reading the elements into the matrix, now I want to print the matrix here. So for that here I am displaying that given matrix is, it print this message on the screen. Then so for printing that I am calling a function. So here this is a function call statement. Function call statement. This is function call statement. Now name of the function is printmat. It is not returning anything here though, so that's why I'm not taking any resulting or receiving variable here. Okay, printmat of which parameters you want to pass here. I want to pass the matrix name. My matrix name is mat A here, so that's why I specified only matrix name. Don't specify the row and column index values here. Okay, subscript values. After that, that matrix contains how many number of rows? That is 3. That matrix contains how many number of columns here? That is also 3. So the I specified at 3 comma 3. Now when this statement is occurred here, the control transferred to the corresponding function definition with the specified parameters. Means here mat A address will be assigned to mat. Okay, next here second argument 3 will be assigned to the second formal parameter r, means r value is 3. Next third formal actual parameter 3 will be assigned to the third formal parameter, that is c value is 3. Now next coming to the body of this function here, int I comma j, I am taking the supporting variables to represent row index values and column index values. Okay, now for loop, by execution of these statements here, it prints that elements, okay, elements of the matrix on the screen. Okay, so here for example if you read the elements are 1 2 3 4 up to 9, now after printing the matrix comes like this here: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. After execution, when it is reached to the end of the definition, again the control goes to where here? The control goes to the main function here. In the main function, the next statement is what? End of the main function. So it stops the execution. Okay, so when the function call statement is encountered, the control transfer to the corresponding function definition. When it is after completion of the execution of this definition here, then the control return back to its calling function, means main function. In the main function, the control goes to where? The next statement of the function call. The next statement of the function call is what? End of the main function. So it exits from the program. Okay, so in this way we can pass two-dimensional arrays to a function. Okay, so like that. So here in this, so I hope you understood that. So here this is the concept of passing two-dimensional array to a function. First we need to declare the prototype statement or declaration statement here. This is the syntax and example here. Okay, next step 2, function call. How to call this function in the calling function? This is the syntax here. Okay, so this is the example how to pass. Okay, next in the third step, how to function definition, how to write the definition of the function here, that you have to specify. This is the syntax of that uh, function definition. Okay, how to write that? This is the example for function definition here. The definition of example for the function definition, you may write the definition either before the main or after the main also. If you write the definition of this function before to the main, then no need to write the declaration or prototype statement. If you write the definition of this function after the main, means you must write the declaration statement. I give that example program also, just reading the matrix and printing the matrix on the screen by passing matrix as the argument to a function. Okay, so I hope you understood this. Okay, so in the next lecture I'll come with a new topic. Thank you.